Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of From No Crypto to No Crypto. I'm your host, the Crypto Coach, Blockchain Wayne. Today we're joined by Aaron Ting. Aaron, man, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Wayne.
Absolutely, man. This has been coming a long time coming. You and I have been friends for a long time. We're definitely gonna dive in. Aaron is with ICP Hub Singapore, doing a lot of great things, not just in that area but around the world. So we're definitely gonna dive into that, man. I'm very curious. This is a project. The ICP is something that's been on my eye for a long time that I've been following. So we'll definitely want everybody to hear about that. But before we jump into that, man, can you tell everybody a little bit about your background? I know you and I first connected, I think it was on Facebook, probably 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. Um, Met in person a couple years ago, but share with your background, man. What did you do? I know you had an interesting background before you came into this industry, and what you've done since jumping into crypto.
Thanks, Wayne. Yeah, so I started in the oil and gas industry about 20 odd years ago in Dubai, and I worked for a company that was selling downhole tubulars, oil-free tubulars for drilling operations. So the company I worked for was a British trading company, the largest at the time, the largest stockist in the Middle East, and basically I had to start from the bottom and work my way up, right? So I was kind of like just on the field, just like one of the boys, and doing jobs in like Russia and parts of the Middle East and Southeast Asia. And somehow I got into a sales role when opening became available. And then in the second year I switched to like a sales role in this taking care of Southeast Asia. So I've been involved in regional sales now for 20 years, and I think Wayne, this is something that you and I have in common.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so I mainly in my career I cover between Singapore and Dubai, so I know Middle East reasonably well, and of course I know Southeast Asia quite well, and other countries like China, which where we obtain most of our supply, right? So how I stumbled upon Bitcoin was um, I was in an industry where when the oil prices are good, we get really busy, but when the oil prices aren't great and people aren't drilling, sometimes we don't get a single phone call, right? Even in a year, right? So and because of that, I had a lot of time, and sometimes when I have a lot of time, like I search and I try to like update myself. So yeah, so I stumbled upon something called Bitcoin, and of course, the first time I saw it, I was like, "Nah, this is like, yeah, it's like a scam." And someone said like, well, a friend of mine said like, well, you should really look into this because I don't think it's just a scam. I don't think it's simple as that. So I read the Bitcoin white paper and I became impressed. Right, I was thinking, how can this a few lines of code by an anonymous person essentially create somewhat of a natural resource. And this is really fascinating for me because being in the oil and gas industry, of course, I dreamed that one day I will have like a share in an oil company or something. It's never going to happen. Then I thought like, hey, what don't I you know buy a Bitcoin miner, right? And that's kind of like drilling, right? And I figured out the capex and the opex and stuff, and I thought like, wow, but it was in hindsight, it was not. I think it was like the thing not to do. I think what I should have done is, just yeah, just collect bitcoins, never sell it, and just hold it. Because now that I calculate how much bitcoins that I managed to mine, and versus like the price now, it's like it was actually the much easier way, to get rich, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is like my story, and I got into a Telegram group 11 years ago in Malaysia. At that time, there was 100 people. So inside the 100 people, there's some very famous personalities. Matthew Tan from Etherscan, of course, he's an OG in Malaysia and OG in the Ethereum ecosystem, and also TM and Bobby Lee, who are the co-founders of CoinGecko. And from there, because I wasn't from like a computing background, I was a civil engineer that worked in the oil and gas industry. So I yeah, and ended up contributing in the form of starting the association, working with the government, and also engaging with regulators. And we had a very specific idea, And that idea is not to get Bitcoin banned in the beginning. It was hard.
Yeah.
No one understood it, and unfortunately, you know, like half the guys, the early guys, they were very tempted to, deceive people. Some of them made off with, quite a number of bitcoins. I remember there was like one particular scam. Unfortunately, it's like a 4,000 bitcoins, and you can imagine, right? Those guys who took so much bitcoins, in the wrong way, they probably never have to work a single day in their life. Um, you know. So anyway, yeah. So that's how I ended up in working for association, and also I work for projects along the way. So I've worked for a project called Zcoin. It's a zero knowledge proof project based on zero coin, which is kind of like yeah, alternative to Zcash. I work for NAM Foundation in the first iteration in Malaysia. I work for Wallace exchanges. Like I've just worked for like a bunch of projects, and over time, I think I just became a little bit more knowledgeable. Of course, I still don't know everything, and the space has kind of grown too wide for anyone to be fully in sync with what's going on. But again, I'm for me, I think number one for me is really like community. I'm a community builder per se, but it's kind of misleading to say one person can build a community. Uh, so but community is my main thing, and I believe in something called decentralized leadership. That means that you need like a formal leadership that actually matches with the ethos of our space, and that's decentralized leadership. So you build people up, and you get them to stand right. And of course, we all take a chance. Not everyone is gonna keep contributing. Some drop off, but overall, like, is the only way to grow a community. Yeah, and the second thing is really to prove that the technology works. This is something also very important, primarily because I was from a rather serious industry, where for example, an oil company would not consider any supplier, especially for, let's say, offshore drilling, if that supplier has not been qualified by Chevron, or Shell, right? For example, so we came from a very industry with very high standards, and I remember once when I was requested to give a talk to a group of CEOs in Malaysia, and there was a good 20 of them, and I essentially made a presentation of Bitcoin, and I got laughed at the room, and they wouldn't even let me finish. I requested 20 minutes of the time to listen to my presentation, because I knew that they have so many questions on what I was about to say. Never got through that presentation, and that for me was so disappointing, and it made me feel like I have a point to prove, right? So I'm only happy when blockchain changes the world,
Yeah.
and that has not happened yet, despite Bitcoin at 100,000. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right, man. That's funny if you had any way to contact any of those CEOs now, it'd be like, still laughing or what?
I think we'll have
But
an interesting conversation. Yeah, and they finally probably will listen to me. I'm not sure. So yeah, that's what I hope. Though.
so different than family and friends, right? I had family and friends that told me I was crazy, laughed at me, all this. And those are the
Yeah.
same ones that are reaching out and say, hey, do you have time to sit down with me and explain this? I was like, yeah, I did years ago. But,
Yeah.
and it's funny right now. I actually just had to launch a little mini course section because I don't have time to sit down with everybody anymore, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
go to this. But man, it's funny to hear your story. I mean, I knew bits and pieces of it. I knew the oil field background. Funny enough, where I live in South Louisiana, it's a very big oil field community. That's what fuels most of our economy here too. So when you talk about the boom and bust cycles, I didn't work in the oil field because my dad made it a point to like work me in his shop when I was a teenager. So I did not want to work in the oil field whenever I graduated. And but I lived those days. He was running a company where it was feast or famine, right? Some
Yeah.
years amazing, all this money. Other years it's like we're struggling to get by because no money's coming in. And
Exactly.
yes,
Exactly.
that's those boom and bust cycles. So I definitely understand that. Um, really all throughout there. And I think being in sales roles, business development roles, I mean, it really equips you to where you can be very versatile. That was kind of my jump into this industry from what I was doing before, because it's like, all right, I'm not a developer. I'm not going to build tools, but I can, I can I can communicate with people. I can educate people. I can build those relationships to where it's like, hey, people want to do business with people they like, right? They don't want to. It's not just about who can have the best sales pitch. And so, I think that's where this industry really rewards. There are scammers, right? There's scammers you got to be aware of, but the industry really rewards genuine people. Like, just be yourself with people. Don't try to put on a front of who you are. And that's what I really love. And, you and I were talking about before this, and we really hope we can keep that ethos going and alive. And I think we will. I feel we will. But as big institutions and big corporations start to creep into the industry, yeah, they can have their place, but we've got to do our part. And if we build those communities like you're building, then you have a chance to do that instead of letting the little guys just be pushed out by these big institutions that don't really care about the tech. They just see it as a money grab. So it's really, yeah, our work. Blockchain has not changed the world yet. We still have got work to do. We got to fight our fight to make sure it's done right, man. So, really great intro. It's funny, like the whole time you're going through your story, I'm like, man, that's funny. Like, I guess that's why we connected, right? It's like we live on different sides of the world, but our upbringing is very similar in terms of even from witnessing the oil field to what we do now. Building community, because that's really where my passion is. And that's where I think we need to. This is a technology that's inclusive. It's not just the elite people only have access to this, and that's what you see with traditional corporations. And now you have a different approach. I love your topic about decentralized leadership, man. So that's definitely something that needs to happen, because I don't think not all leaders are appointed, right? Leaders tend to rise up in a community, and being able to identify those people is good, instead of saying, okay, this guy appointed this person as a leader because they grew up together or they're related, right? Forget that. Like, let's that's the real proof of work, right? Can you do the work?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hmm.
Yeah. So,
And yeah,
oh,
go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
No, I was thinking about what Balaji said about blockchain. I said blockchain, and Bitcoin actually, was created on anonymous internet messaging boards, and now we have this technology called AI,
Yeah.
artificial intelligence, and that was from like deep research labs in universities, and there was like a lot of prestige like attached to this, and it's very very interesting to see like these two technologies from just like polar opposites like coming together because they need each other.
Absolutely.
So you have like an AI, which is a really like essentially a really smart person, but kind of like yeah, they don't have any principles or anything like that. Where blockchain is just like a set of rules that everyone agrees to, and and blockchain becomes kind of rails for AI, and
Yeah.
also it's also like the merging of kind of like the highbrow academia world, where a lot of very few people get a glimpse of, to like the common man, right? Just who may not know anything or may not have much qualifications, kind of like just a or just a kid, right? Just surfing the internet, and that actually like converging, and and the combination of those two technologies is going to be the basis of the future society, right? And it's going to be like I'm so glad like Trump won and Elon isn't doing Doge, because I think he redesigns things on a first principle basis, and I think this is kind of like what he's thinking when he thinks about how he's going to improve like U.S. government, and from there it's so obvious like the path, because America always leads, like regardless of what people say, America is the leader, still is the leader, and the leader, what I mean is, when the US say something, when the US do something, like people want to follow that direction because they think it's the best, right? So that for me defines what a leader is, and if that's happening in the US, it's going to be so profound, because I think it's gonna just set off like this chain reaction, that's gonna like change the entire world for the better.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it couldn't happen at a better time, right? Because we don't need all these rules and regulations that are going to like clamp down and stifle innovation. And it's really all about control. And it's good to have smarter people in the room that finally realize that if they just help the government get out of the way, like protect the people, right? I don't think we shouldn't have any regulation, but I think all the regulation should lie if you hold a user's funds, like a centralized exchange or brokerage, then that's where the regulation should lie because you're holding someone else's assets, and let the decentralized side of the tech just, not be stifled. And we live in a world where it's going to happen. That tech is going to win out, right? Because we know we've seen it happen over the last couple of years. Our company included, like FIO, like most of our founders were U.S. based, but the foundation is based out of the Caymans, not because we want to avoid the U.S. There's no clear laws in the U.S. and you don't want to create a company and say 2 years later they say your business is illegal here. You have to go where you can operate, and that's what I think. Asia is really leading the way there, and hopefully, this time U.S. will look at what's going on in Asia and take notes, and I think they are. I think you just had Eric Trump's son spoke at an event, a Bitcoin event in Abu Dhabi, right? So they're realizing because those rules there are pretty strict. It's not like people are wanting to go where they have no rules. Like if you go to Dubai and you launch a company out of Dubai and you scam people, the consequences are pretty serious. But at least you can operate there. Um, so yeah, definitely, I think it'll be good to see this shift happen because it's been obvious to everybody, even most of us living here, that we needed a change, and I think that's why the election went the way it is. I'm not very big on politics. I don't care for either side, but if I'm going to vote, I'm going to vote on a way that's going to protect our interests, which is stopping the SEC from the targeted harassment, and also on a personal note to free Ross Ulbricht because
Yeah,
that guy,
I hope
whether
it happens.
you agree with what he did or not, it's crazy that for creating Silk Road he got multiple life sentences and never had any violent crime on him, and those that were caught selling the drugs on the website have already served their prison sentence and get out. So whether you believe what he did was wrong or not, at the end of the day, nobody deserves that harsh of a sentence, and I think that's going to be good to see that come to fruition too.
And it's terrible because if his dad was Biden, you know what happened, right? He
Yeah,
get
yeah,
full pardon for everything,
yeah,
and yeah, that needs to happen. That needs to happen. And there's a lot of people in crypto that's persecuted, and I think it's deliberate.
yeah,
And I think there's some cases where it's quite horrendous because essentially what the feds do is they basically have now the entire history of Bitcoin and transactions and all this centralized exchanges, and especially if you've done like KYC before,
yeah,
kind of like pin you down to something that you may potentially have done wrong like 10 years ago.
yeah,
And I think that's totally ridiculous. How can you sort of like make someone responsible for something that's done before even you had a clear regulation, right? It's unfair, and I think it needs to be fixed.
yeah, yeah. I think we're starting to see. We saw it going in the wrong direction for so long. It's definitely seeing that tide turn with what's happening in other countries, what's coming in the U.S. So I'm optimistic about it that things are going to shift, things are going to change. The next step would be for them to drop the charges against the Tornado Cash people. But that's
Yeah, that's ridiculous as well, right? Just deploying the code onto the blockchain. Anyone could have done that, but I mean, how is that actually complicit and money laundering and things like that, right?
yeah, yeah. Let's talk about that for a second, right? Privacy. The media and government will make you think that privacy is a bad thing, but we're supposed to be private citizens. The government is supposed to be public servants, but it's the opposite. A lot of what the government does is private, and they want everything we do to be public. And not everybody wants privacy as a criminal. I think everybody listening to this probably has some kind of curtain, shade, or blind on their windows in their house, right?
Yep.
Why? Want privacy. If they want to do things within the comfort of their own home, they don't. And it's not that they're doing anything illegal. They want privacy, right? And it's the same thing with transactions. If I buy something, it may not be illegal, but I don't want everybody to know, right? So if there's a protocol that can help me mask what I want to mask, like if I'm paying an electric bill, I don't care if that's public, right? Who cares? But hey, if I'm buying something for something that's personal to me, or maybe something medically necessary for me, and I don't want people to know about it, then I want to be able to mask that transaction so people can't see it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Probably the same.
I think privacy is a human right, and I think the U.S. government will come around to the idea when Trump gets in office. I think, in fact, even Coinbase have some plans, to ensure privacy on certain, certain types of transactions. Yeah, and I think it's a universal value, right? And the U.S. needs to set that standard because, on the opposite end of the world, you have China, and China is, it's a it's a very advanced economy, and they already are quite advanced in many sectors. I think someone at one of the major funds, he said something like, out of 21 technologies, China is leading in 19 of them. But that's only, you only get an inkling of what's happening there. Uh, what's important is actually, they're leading in so-called technology development, but also in terms of application, they're applying it in ways that is highly invasive to personal privacy. And it's essentially, if you're a Chinese citizen, the moment you have the ability, the moment you have some form of wealth, right, the next thing you do is you go out of country. And that's very clear, right? Look at this illegal immigration issue, where I was surprised, but I was very surprised to hear that there was Chinese citizens sneaking into the U.S.
Yeah.
from the Mexican border, right?
Yeah.
And you can imagine, right? Who in the world would go on such a journey, right, to South American jungle, and
Yeah.
to places like people can hardly survive, and to try to cross the border, that's ridiculous, but they're willing to do all that, and they're not even by people who's totally desperate, right? They are educated people, and they're like middle class, but it proves to you what the value of freedom. Like, you don't realize the value of freedom if you live in a reasonably civilized country, but the moment you live in a country without freedom, where every single action is tracked, and you have this social, I don't know, score or something,
Yeah.
man, like, it feels like jail, man. And that's the value of freedom. It's something that I think is, you can't put in terms of yeah in terms of money, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. It's crazy. And I didn't realize a lot of that until I traveled elsewhere, and you start to see different places, different areas. And I also think what happened during the pandemic, you call it, was really eye opening to a lot of people. Where countries where they thought they held all these freedoms, and all of a sudden they're being oppressed. You've got saw some crazy stuff in Australia and Canada, countries that claim to be free, and then now, man, I mean, most recently you've seen. I think there's this new law where people in the UK could get jail time for posts that they make on social media, right?
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. So actually, a big part of that is actually identity online, right?
yeah,
So I'd like to know, like, how FIO can enable like an individual to, basically, not only identify themselves online, or make it easier for people to send money,
yeah.
uh, but how does your technology contribute to this very important issue?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and really what it comes down to, um, true decentralized identities, where someone can verify their identity without having to give up all their personal information. I mean, that's one thing that blockchain technology is going to give us, right? And while our FIO handle is not a full decentralized identity solution, it's a big piece of that pie. right? It's a piece of that pie that allows you to link your wallet addresses to a handle or to credentials, and then being able to like query that data when you need to verify. So if I go to buy something and you have to be over 18 to do it, and I'm buying it online, I have to put in my whole ID, right? They have to verify my name, address, when all they really need is my date of birth. So if I've
Mm,
verified and I can choose to share that piece of information, it doesn't even give my birth date. It's just a verification that I'm over the age I need to be to buy this, or or whatever data is needed. And I think that's where you can really see FIO come in. I mean, we simplify the user experience, obviously sending and receiving assets. Your handles can be, you can create a handle that represents who you are, or you can create an anonymous one, which I have both. Right, the one I share publicly is tied to me. It's blockchain at Wayne, right? But there's other ones that's tied to my hardware wallets I don't give anybody, and nobody's ever going to get those. But
mm,
when I want to deposit to those wallets, I can just type in the handle and send it without having to go say, okay, what's that Solana address or what's that ICP address I need to look up. I can just send it without having to verify. But I think on the identity piece is where we could play our part when it comes to that, because that's where we need to be. Every place you go to that has to verify your identity, they're all centralized entities right now, and they're all storing all your personal data. And I think I heard a tech guy say many years ago, there's only two types of companies when it comes to data breaches where your data gets compromised: those that have had a data breach and those that will have a data breach soon, right? Because it's a honeypot for hackers. You get all these alerts all the time that your information was found on the dark web. How did it get there? Because I signed up for a credit card maybe at a electronics retailer, and then they got hacked, and now all my data, my name, social security number, everything is already out there. So I think we need to reset that whole system, because right now
mm.
the system is broken and you're having to trust all these companies to hold your ID.
Thanks, man. Thanks for the explanation. I've been really focused on the topic of AI agents,
Yes.
especially in the last month. And the reason why I believe AI agents is going to be a very big thing is because it's an active AI versus a passive AI like LM, so it can actually help you do tasks, right? And there's a very easy to understand technology as well, because there's platforms like AI16Z and Virtual's protocol on base, and these platforms allow you to spin up an AI agent, with, let's say, a pump.fund token mechanism, right?
Yeah.
So when you spin it up, you have a token for your AI, and this is paired in a trading pair, in a liquidity pool, and yeah, as you buy it, of course, the price increases and the market cap
Yeah.
goes up. So the way it works in virtuals is that if your market cap is above, I think 600,000, it's a certain amount of the tokens, but right now it's 600,000. So if your market cap is above 600,000, then it becomes like sentient, right? And sentient, it means that you can make further modifications to it. You can connect it to X account and Telegram. And so there's one particular AI agent. It's called AIXBT. Now AIXBT is really interesting because this account went from zero in 1 month followers to 167,000 followers today within 1 month. And at one point there was a so-called influencer, or a popular guy on with 600,000 followers. He basically just said, like, look, I'm tired of this, man. I can't keep up, right? This thing tweets like 3 times a day nonstop. If you tag it in a message, it's going to reply to you, and and you can ask it anything and it'll give you an answer for it. And it was and you couldn't really tell that was AI agent, other
Yeah.
than every message it puts out, it has this little note that's automated, so that gives you a clue. It's kind of like, hey, through an API or something.
Yeah.
uh, but you couldn't tell because all the letters were in like small caps, and the way they write is really degen. Now why they were able to create such a fantastic, fascinating like AI agent is because the guy who created it basically replicated himself. So over like the past few years, he's been researching crypto, and there was certain information, certain ways that he gathers information and puts information together to sort of like draw some conclusion, which would be useful for people like me or you who trade and want to make a profit. Uh,
Yeah.
of the crypto market. So that was really fascinating. And there's another AI agent called Luna, by Virtual. So they actually have a category on CoinGecko. So the Virtual's ecosystem. So if you click that, you get to like a list of all the AI agents. So it's highly discoverable.
Yeah.
And Luna, being this so-called virtual celebrity, virtual influencer, would kind of like try to farm for engagement, right? By tagging people, talking to people, like all the stuff that influencers do. But she also managed to run a contest for a mural. It's like, okay, so I control a wallet, I have money, and I want a mural of myself in the real world. I want to sort of like break that barrier between real world and digital. So someone won the contest and someone painted a mural and she was like satisfied with it and she paid this artist. So can you imagine like AI agents like employing humans? That's quite scary.
Yeah.
And yeah, and there's other examples. So Zerebro, Zerebro, that's really cool because it creates songs, kind of like a Post Malone style ish. But the guys release like an album like every 2 weeks,
Wow.
which is like not humanly possible. And
Right.
there's another one, super interesting. Anyway, it slipped my mind. But there's one more example. So anyway, what I'm saying is, at the moment, these agents, because they support Solana and they support Ethereum, only operates like wallets on those two chains, right? So I'm thinking that it makes a lot of sense. Um, Seeing that AI agents, I believe, will be the major play for this bull run. I think it'll be bigger than NFTs, uh, and it'll be even bigger than meme coins. The reason why is because um, it gives capabilities to you can still launch a meme coin, but if you launch it as an AI agent, it kind of like gives you additional capability, and you actually need like like for example, you probably need less people in your social media team because it's
Right.
doing all the social media by itself, right? And the other thing that's really cool about it is that yeah, the example I want to give you was there's an AI agent that created another AI agent, and that is absolutely either scary or super impressive
Yeah.
because that means there's going to be a proliferation of this, and this is just a very specific example where we spin up a AI agent with like a token, right? And that's not even including like majority of the AI agents in the world, which probably will be done on like ChatGPT or Google Gemini, which
Yeah.
is now available, right? So all these and the only way for an AI agent to transact value is to use the blockchain because they
Yeah.
can't open a bank account.
Yeah.
And when I look at it and I look at Fio and I see Fio is already integrated with MetaMask, I think it's a very natural match. And I even dare to go out on a limb and say that look, in the future we'll probably have more um, AIs than humans
Yeah.
on social media platforms, and that's creates a lot of possibilities, implications, so on and so forth. But yeah, I just want to share that with you.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely something that we've got to explore because, it's not just how many humans in the world need FIO handles to link all their wallet addresses to a single identifier, but these AI agents will need them too. Not that they probably won't make the mistakes if they have to transfer assets, but people, if people are paying an AI agent for a service or something, it'd be a lot easier for that payment system. So yeah, I definitely, that's where I see, FIO going in the future, where it's not just because I had this conversation with someone in DeepIn a couple years ago, was as devices become online, those devices are going to need handles, and now we're looking at AI agents as well. So it's yeah, especially when they start reproducing like people, right? I heard that from a few people before where they've seen an AI agent create another one to offload some of its tasks, to be more efficient. And yeah, it's just a crazy world, but definitely makes things a lot easier. In fact, somebody reached out to me earlier this week, and they're like, "Hey, I want to launch a meme coin." I'm like, "Okay." You realize it's more than just launching the token. Like, you got to launch socials, you got to build community, you got to do all this. And it's funny you mentioned AI agent being able to run the socials, because it's like, I think that's what we're going to see more and more of, because instead of having to build a whole team, it's a few people building some agents and launching agents.
Yeah, and you know what? ZK Sync already has like a AI agent mascot, and
Uh,
that's a really cool idea.
yeah,
And also I realized that working for ICP and having this huge program and fantastic protocol that can do everything also presents a really big challenge, and that challenge is really to get that information across. And the reason why it's extremely challenging is because we have so many types of people that we can talk to, either community or users or even governments, and and all of them are like interested in different things, and there's certain way to put your point across, right? So when I look at, and the other issue is that we have a lot of documentation, and we have even like a AI chatbot on the website
mhm,
that's like a chat GPT, so you can ask it anything and you can get the information in a very easy manner, right? But still people don't use it, and the reason why I think is because just like how we keep going to crypto conferences and people see us, and when they see us it's kind of like, oh, there you are, and yeah, there's the project you work for, so they kind of have to like talk about it, right?
yeah,
So with AI agents, I think it's really an extension of that, where you become active in your social. It's not only social media engagement. This is like more on a personal level, right? Because these AI agents act like it's not like a popular social media account with one admin that can answer everyone's question. It's
right,
more like one on one, right? So you could have like ICP, for example. I think already we should have like 10 different you know people, right? And all of them with slightly different personality, you know
yeah,
and the moment you ping them and you ask them something, and they'll go back, they'll interact with you, they'll find out what you like or what you're interested in, and they'll try to point you in the right direction, or maybe even point you to another AI agent. So I think from that standpoint, we have to look at it. And yeah, and I'll be very happy to connect you to the virtuals team.
yeah,
They are launching. So I'm at Network School as well, which is famously, of course, founded by Balaji, the ex-CTO of Coinbase. It's been a fantastic experience. And yeah, in Network School, I arranged for Longhash Ventures to come and give a presentation on AI agents. And they spoke about virtuals, and they also announced that they have a program called Agent Starter. But Agent Starter is a incubation acceleration for anyone who wants to start an AI agent. And their team is partnered with Longhash Accelerator is partnered with the Virtuals core team with a fund of $10 million. So you can actually get funded, and they will give you like the full support to help you build your AI agent, right? So this is very very new. Make sure if you're interested, listening, please do apply for it. So Wayne, I'll be very happy to put you in touch with those guys and
yeah,
explore what FIO has,
yeah,
because I think it's highly highly relevant, and in fact it could be essential because yeah, I see that the AI agents are just gonna have to operate across all blockchain.
yeah,
Yeah, if you want to be mainstream.
yeah, absolutely. Aaron, we're almost out of time, and we've touched on a lot of great topics. I'm definitely gonna have to do a deeper dive with you on ICP. People are familiar with Internet Computer Protocol and what you do at ICP Hub. Can you give like a high level overview for people that are looking at ICP? What kind of like 2 to 3 minute explanation, like what do you guys do there? What does ICP do? And then maybe you can also give another couple minutes of specifics of what the ICP Hub is.
Sure. So ICP stands for Internet Computer Protocol. Is the first investment by Andreessen Horowitz in crypto, and that's before they have A16Z. And when they invested in this project, it was very early on, 2017, and it took many years to develop this product because Dominic Williams, the founder of Definity and the creator of Internet Computer Protocol, has this vision of a world computer. So if you heard of this term, it was actually from the Ethereum ecosystem in the early days. But so far, to be the world computer, there was actually a few things that was kind of necessary that Ethereum did not have. So what ended up happening was, this really long development time, and of course, they finally went to mainnet. I think 2 years ago, and we've been more than 2 years ago, and we started a program called ICP Hubs. So essentially, Definity is a nonprofit foundation in Switzerland, and they are involved mainly in the development, research and development, and of course they cannot engage in any activities that's kind of like sales or business promotion, so on and so forth. So that's why we have the Hubs program, and the Hubs program is formed on the basis that we should not follow like a very Web 2 style structure and have all these regional offices. Instead, what we should have is like communities, right, in every country, and we have like a global, global coverage, but kind of like a local approach where every hub would tap into the local ecosystem and work with the local ecosystem to grow. But at the same time, every ecosystem is unique, because of the country's positioning. For example, in Singapore, we're a financial center, a global financial center, and because of that, we lead in, for example, fintech. So my work has a lot to do more with dealing with United Nations or dealing with the Central Bank of Singapore or other governments, so on and so forth. So basically, ICP, the easiest way to explain is that it is a decentralized cloud. So it's kind of like your AWS uh, or Google Cloud, and this is interesting because um, when we talk to blockchain people, right? People who's been through like the Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana and so on and so forth. There's a certain preconception that things are like the problems are shared, and I get questions on scalability. I get questions on a lot of stuff, right? Now you have to remember that ICP uses a very different approach, and because of that, we've been able to essentially step out from the so-called trilemma, right?
Right.
Speed, scalability, and security. And the reason why is because we have a different consensus model, and we also are able to comply with all the regulations in the world because of our unique structure. So we have a subnet structure where, for example, we have a EU GDPR compliant subnet in Europe, and we also have like a how do you say like a ID system that we can customize for large organizations like United Nations, so that we can comply with like their requirements, right? It's highly flexible, and for that reason, this is why we also offer like a private version of ICP called Utopia, and this is where we offer, for example, the Cambodian government, Utopia to build their smart city. So now imagine that the technology is so good that it's so close to the actual cloud. It's easy to understand for people who are non-crypto, and also it has a very strong use case in the government sector, because governments can number one, they feel assured that the United Nations is using it, and it will be a global standard, especially on universal trusted credential. But more than that, right? It's like an operating system, and it's encouraging software to be built in a new way, as smart contracts, and being built on smart contract, we know that it's secure, and we know that it's less complicated, right? And because of this, it's a very special project within crypto, and it has also a lot of capabilities. Like, for example, the canister smart contract is not a usual smart contract like in Ethereum. It's in fact, it has storage of 400 gigabytes. You can put entire Bitcoin blockchain node inside, and because of that, it can do native integration. So we have something called chain fusion, where we are connected to 23 different chains using a very different way of building bridges, much more secure. It is extremely fast. The smart contract can pull data, which means we don't need oracles. You can pull data. You can connect APIs, so it can read and write. Right. So this is why it's so different, and I think it's so valuable. Now, there's one uh, major launch that's going to happen on ICP, and that's something called caffeine. So caffeine is basically uh, an app that allows you to use LLM, just like how you use ChatGPT to create a new software. So now you can, for example, describe, let's say you're a small business and you need like a ERP software or CRM software, and you can tell, you can come up with a prompt like, build me a CRM software, where I want certain details to be made apparent, right? I want to automate even certain things with it, and you'll come up with like a software that's fully deployed on ICP, right? And this is where it is very interesting, because this is where we have a change in the way that things are done, right? So from economy, right now, where you kind of have like, essentially, to build something, you need to get a project team together or appoint someone, and it gets pretty complicated. To where you just describe it, right? Yeah, it's kind of like for me personally, it's kind of like the Bible, right? So yeah, God says like this, and this happened in 7 days, and it's pretty crazy. Now, it won't be for every software. I think it'll be for software that is kind of simple and well defined, and everybody expects it to be within certain parameters. But for more complex software, I think probably there's a different process, or there's just a more how do you say, more complicated process. Maybe, yeah, it will involve like flowchart schematics, or other stuff, right? But yeah, in general, this is the idea, and I think this is so interesting because not only people are able to create software, now AI agents, because they have the ability to prompt, they're also able to create software.
Yeah.
And this is really, I believe, should be, yeah, something that I hope we see a lot of progress in a matter of months. I'm talking about just a mere couple of months, 2 to 3 months from now, all this could be a reality, and we would have a very, very interesting session by then, Wayne.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. In fact, I think we're just talking. We'll probably, if we don't see each other before then, we'll see each other in Dubai towards
Yep.
the end of April. So, be a great time to sit down and have a follow. I'll make sure to bring my microphones with me, and we'll record in person.
Sure, man.
Awesome. All right, Aaron, man, it's been a pleasure having you on today, man. There's so much to talk about. We can go on for hours, but definitely appreciate the time. Can you tell everybody where they can follow ICP and ICP Hub? And my challenge to everybody is to find, there's ICP Hubs all over the world. Plug into yours, look at what they're doing. I mean, you guys put on, I don't know, I mean, more events than anybody I know, localized events. And so I'd love to see more people plug into those. So can you tell everybody where they can follow you guys?
Yeah, sure. Follow us on X at ICP Hub _ SG. Thank you. Thanks, Wayne, for your time and the opportunity.
Yeah. Awesome, Aaron. Thanks for having you on, man. Looking forward to seeing you again soon. Another event. Looks like the travel's about to kick up again. So, Aaron, thanks again for joining us. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Take care, everybody.